Bolivia might not be synonymous with football as some of their neighbours are, but it's a beautiful country with some unique stadiums. So here are the Bolivian Primera División grounds. Estadio Municipal de Villa Ingenio is located in the city of El Alto, which translates to the Heights, a fitting name because it's situated at over 4,000 meters above sea level, which unsurprisingly makes it the highest stadium in the country. What is surprising is that despite being an otherwise modern stadium, there is no proper seating within, just terracing. It was built on a modest budget of $8 million. Of course the luxury suites have seats, but that goes without saying, even though I just said it. Estadio Felix Capriles has an interesting but rather dark past. Part of the original construction was carried out by Paraguayan prisoners of war from the Chaco War in the early 1930s. I guess that wasn't that uncommon back in those days. I wouldn't be surprised if some Soviet stadiums were built by German prisoners of war. The design is pretty distinctive, not just due to the bright colourful patterns of the stands, but the unusual curving stand along each sideline is not something you see every day. Estadio Ramon Tahuichi Aguilera is home to 3 clubs, which is not all that surprising when you consider that Santa Cruz de la Sierra is the largest city in the country, and this is the only stadium in this large city that is even remotely large. Still, it's apparently not large enough, as there have been plans drawn up to lower the field in order to get rid of the track and increase the capacity further. Sounds good to me, but even in its current state, it's a solid stadium. Estadio Hernando Siles. This league has some seriously interesting club names. We started off the video with Club Always Ready, and now we have a club called The Strongest. I think when the two clubs face each other, the result just depends on whether the strongest are ready or not. Anyway, this is the largest stadium and one of the oldest stadiums in the country. It not only hosts the strongest, but also the national team, which must be made up entirely of the strongest players. That's how it works, right? The ground is often a point of contention in international matches due to its elevation, but the visiting team should just be thankful that they're not playing in El Alto. Estadio Gilberto Parada is situated at the lowest altitude in the league, just a measly 298 meters above sea level. Still, that's nearly twice as high as the Premier League's highest stadium, keeping in mind that Bolivia is a landlocked country with no land at sea level. Whilst it may have a geographical distinction, the stadium itself is like many that you see in South America. Oh, and I promise no more mention of the word elevation or altitude from now on. Estadio Olímpico Patria is situated in Sucre, one of Bolivia's 2 capital cities, the other being La Paz that we saw earlier. The reason why they have 2 capitals is, well, Bolivians are just too cool for one capital to handle. They're not quite at the coolness levels of South Africa with its 3 capitals, but still pretty cool. Switzerland's situation confuses me. I'm not sure how cool they are. Anyway, the stadium is named after this monument located nearby. It's more likely to be that white one in the background, or an entirely different one. I couldn't quite confirm it. Estadio Gran Memore. If I didn't know any better, I'd think that name means grandmother, when in fact it means Grand Memore. In a weird coincidence, the club were founded specifically as a Christian football club, and their current manager is called Cristian Reinaldo. Sounds familiar. That's got me thinking. You hear people from Western countries called Christian, and in places like Bangladesh, Islam is a common surname. But I've never once heard of someone who was called something like Matthew Scientologist. What's up with that? Estadio Victor Augustin Ugarte gets the nickname of the Nest of the Condors. partially due to the fact that it's situated at an especially high due to its highness. It's high, just under the 4,000 meter mark. And condors usually build their nests especially high up. It's a status symbol, really. Spectators are also treated to a backdrop of nearby mountains pocked with silver mines. Those are the reason this town exists in the first place. Estadio Bicentenario is fairly similar to the stadium that we started this video off with. Although, as you can see, unlike that one, it does have plenty of bucket seating. Excuse the strongest shirts. I believe the photographer tried to move it out of the way, but it's the strongest. It didn't budge. Anyway, the stadium was named for Bolivia's bicentenary. And despite the construction being halted for a year due to reasons, they were still very early. I believe the bicentenary is in 2025. Estadio Real Santa Cruz. The first two words of this club's name, Real Santa, brings joy to millions of children around the world. But unfortunately, kids, Santa isn't—
Hey, before you say that, let me offer you a deal.
As I was saying, Santa Claus is real. Also, the Coca-Cola company not only makes great tasting beverages, but is also very benevolent and environmentally friendly. Is that all I have to say?
Yes.
Wow. I feel like a FIFA executive. Money for old rope. Just when you thought an Estadio Bicentenario was impressive, bam! We see an Estadio Quadcentenario, or Tetracentenario. That's got to be in reference to when Bolivia was first colonized by the Spanish, rather than when it became independent from the Spanish, as Bicentenario is referring to. It might be twice the centenario, but it's probably half as good. Not bad though by any means, it certainly has a buena vista. Estadio Roberto Jordan Sueya gets the nickname Colossus of the Amazon, because it's in the Amazon, more or less. It also happens to be less than 500 meters from the border with Brazil. Don't be mistaken, that's not a river, it's a medium-sized anaconda. And in some ways, the stadium's design is reminiscent of an anaconda. You know, an anaconda that has just ingested a medium-sized deer. In particular, the way the seating bowl rises towards the center of the field and dips at the end. It doesn't look like an anaconda. So there you have it, time to pick a favorite. Despite the running track, I just really like Estadio Hernando Siles. Perhaps it's the way the high-rise buildings overlook the ground. If you're new to the channel, welcome. But also please consider subscribing for more stadium videos. Thanks for watching, have a good one.